Hey, this is Dr. Campbell. And so today I want to talk about how can parents help to eliminate gun violence. Now, gun violence continues to plague this world with no possible remedy in sight. Children are victimized as innocent bystanders. Perpetrators are killed by law enforcement or eventually incarcerated. Gun violence targets are either killed, crippled, or placed in or become incarcerated. Now, there seems to be no remedy for the rampant gun violence. Now, I looked up some research, and according to the Pew Research Center, there were 13.9 gun deaths per 100,000 people in 2020. There also were 6.2 gun murders per 100,000 people in 2020. And then there were 7 gun suicides per 100,000 people in 2020. Now, the same researcher, the Pew Center, they also reported that Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, Missouri, and Alabama were the states with the highest rates of gun-related deaths in that order. And then finally, in 2020, handguns were involved in 59% of the 13,620 U.S. gun murders and non-negligent manslaughters. Wow. Now that's a lot. Now, I also found some other research that reported on the causes for gun violence. And this is what the Education Fund to Stop Gun Violence said. They said the reasons are income inequality, poverty, underfunded public housing, under-resourced public services, underperforming schools, lack of opportunity and perceptions of hopelessness, and easy access to firearms by high-risk people. Now, I have a problem with these reasons because it seems more like these are some of the categories that they found that the people existed in. But it is my belief, and this is why I don't think we've solved the gun violence problem. It is my belief that people and individuals, they have the inability to control their anger. Now, remember recently, my wife and I, we were attending the 2022 Nicetown Community Festival in Philadelphia, and we were selling our T-shirts and our other apparel. And so the chief of police of Philadelphia, Daniel Outlaw, they gave her some time to speak about gun violence. And what she said was she encouraged parents and grandparents to go in their children's bedrooms and ransack their bedrooms looking for guns as a mechanism to reduce gun violence. And so my thinking is she's saying, well, if you take the guns out of their hands, then they are less likely to commit those crimes. And so I'm thinking, now, wait a minute, they'll just find another source to get their guns like everybody else. And so I think what we have to do is we have to teach our children to better control their anger. And parents, this is something that you can do at home. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to help the children learn how to predict when they are angry or predict their anger triggers. And so I used to be a family therapist back in the day, and I used to work with young people who were having anger challenges. And so the first thing I would do is I would have them make an angry face. And I would have them to close their eyes. And I would say, well, now I want you to remember what your cheekbone feels like. I want you to remember what your eyebrows feel like. I want you to remember what your whole face feels like. And then I would have a picture of a face, and we would identify the different parts of what happened when they were angry. Okay. And so now you're actually giving them a reference point for when they need to use other strategies, when they start to feel that anger in their face. Now, the second step to predicting their anger triggers is I would have them make the angry face again and then tell me what the other parts of your body are doing. And I would write these things down. And I would say to the child, remember, this is what's happening to your body when you feel angry. And so when you feel angry, there are other things that you can do rather than get a gun. So, for example, I had a little tot. I think he was a 5-year-old, and he was um, in preschool, and they had kicked him out of preschool. And he had been kicked out of several preschools because of his anger issues. And so I came in and we identified that. But the first thing I taught him to do was to fold his hands. I said, when you start feeling angry and you start feeling upset, fold your hands and squeeze. And so this gives them an opportunity to start squeezing out some of that anger. And so this is something that a parent can teach at home. Also, I teach this for children who may be having problems in the classroom, because the psychology is, most of the time what happens is our kids get in trouble in the transition between activities. And so what happens is if a child is standing at their desk with their hands folded, the psychology for the teacher is, oh, this kid is ready. Oh, this is a good kid. And this is how you shift that teacher's perception. And then they get rewarded because teachers normally say, well, I like the way so-and-so is sitting. And so now the student or your young person who's been having some anger issues, they get a positive reinforcement. Okay. And so that's something that you can teach is when you feel angry, fold your hands and squeeze out the anger. It's just like if you're at home and you have to scold them for something. And as Black people, we are experts in identifying that verbal behavior, that verbal facial behavior. And if you see them angry, you say, okay, what you supposed to do when you're angry? And so they sit down and fold their hands and squeeze out the anger. And then the next thing you know, this becomes a practice. And when this becomes a practice, they're not reaching for a weapon. They're not reaching for a gun. They are managing their own behavior. And so the other thing I teach, and a parent can teach, is belly breathing. So let's say they go through the facial and body recognition, or you see that they're angry, then you start telling them, just take deep breaths. And what happens is the blood starts rushing to the brain. And scientifically, you start replacing those negative cells or those negative thoughts with positive ones. Okay. And so you can also teach belly breathing to your children. Now, there are an assortment of other strategies, but the last one that I really like is positive affirmations. You can never go wrong giving your child positive affirmations. If you leave a note for them every day on the refrigerator of something positive, or even for the little kids, a picture of something positive in their life, this helps to be able to control that anger. And so, like I said before, I don't think our problem with gun violence is guns. I think the problem with gun violence is that we are not teaching our children how to better handle their anger. And it really puzzles me with all of these initiatives in schools, why don't we have an anger management curriculum and an anger management curriculum for all children? So then they grow up to be young people and they grow up to be young adults and adults that better handle their anger and do not resort to gun violence. And so this is Dr. Campbell. I want to thank you very much. My office number is 856-566-3267. And my email is moreinfo at quarantineracism.com. Thank you very much.